There were 47 surveillance cameras in that hotel, yet not a single one showed Kenneka Jenkins walking out. It was 1 a.m. on a Saturday when Kenneka stepped into the Crowne Plaza Hotel in Rosemont, Illinois. She was with a group of friends, laughing, live streaming, just having fun. It was a birthday party kind of night, loud music, alcohol, a packed hotel room that felt way too hot. Kenneka didn't stand out much. She was the quiet one in the group. But around 3 a.m., she was gone. Her friends thought maybe she just stepped out for some air. They texted. They called. No answer. Eventually, they left the hotel, and they even took her car keys with them. For the next 7 hours, not one of them came back to look for her. Security footage later showed Kenneka stumbling alone through the lower level of the hotel. She came off the elevator, bumped into a wall, then vanished around a corner. That was the last known sighting of her alive. Her mother, Teresa Martin, got the call early that morning. She rushed to the hotel, begged the staff to check the cameras, pleaded with the police to help find her daughter. But both said no. They told her to wait, said maybe Kenneka would come back on her own. By the time police finally agreed to review the footage, nearly 21 hours had passed. And when they opened the door to a walk-in freezer down in the basement, there she was, Kenneka Jenkins, lying inside. One shoe missing, lips frozen blue. No one could explain how she ended up in that restricted area. And no one could say why the cameras down there had suddenly stopped working right when it mattered most. And still, no one can answer the simplest question. How does a girl disappear inside a hotel covered in cameras without anyone noticing until it's too late? Kenneka Jenkins was born and raised on the west side of Chicago, a neighborhood all too familiar with struggle. There, graffiti-covered walls, cracked sidewalks, and dimly lit, empty corners are part of the everyday view. But inside a small third-floor apartment in an old building, there was a different world. One filled with soft R&B, playing from a Bluetooth speaker, the scent of fresh shampoo, and the sound of a mother and daughter laughing down the hallway. Her mother, Teresa Martin, worked the night shift as a nurse. She raised Kenneka on her own from the time her daughter was just 3 years old. Teresa wasn't just a mom. She was a best friend, a protector, a guide. In her eyes, Kenneka was the most beautiful thing she'd ever known. That girl had a smile that could heal a bad day, she once told a reporter after that devastating night. Kenneka was the kind of person people called the light in the room. Always smiling, showing off a fresh manicure, sometimes wearing a new hairstyle she'd done herself at home. Her friends remembered her through TikTok dance clips, funny status updates, and late-night fried chicken runs after school. But behind the joy was a girl who knew exactly what kind of world she lived in. A world that wasn't made easy for someone like her. A young, black girl from a working-class neighborhood trying to stay strong. On nights when her mom was working, Kenneka stayed home alone, cooking, listening to music, and preparing for community college. She once told her mom she wanted to go into healthcare, just like her. "I want to help people," she said, "because I know what it feels like to be left behind." Teresa would never forget those words. 19 is an in-between age, somewhere between teenage dreams and adult responsibilities. For Kenneka, it was a fragile time, balancing nights out with friends and early mornings chasing job interviews. She wasn't the loudest in the group or the most popular in class. But when she showed up, the room felt softer. Her friends called her the glue, the one who listened to everyone's problems, remembered all their birthdays, and always had tissues ready when somebody cried over a breakup. In school, Kenneka didn't chase big dreams. She once told a friend, "I just want to live, be happy, and be kind." She enrolled in a community college on the South Side, planning to become a nurse. Not because it was her passion, but because it was the most practical way to help her mom and build something steady for her future. On weekends, she picked up shifts at a local sandwich shop or helped out at a nearby senior care center. And at night, she'd dress up, throw on a little lipstick, and head out with her friends. Nothing fancy, maybe some fast food, a few rap songs in the car, and long conversations in the park. That was her world, small but warm. Her closest friends were Monifa, Shemaya, and Irene. They'd been tight since middle school, 4 girls, each with their own personality, but bonded by growing up in a tough place. In one of the last photos ever taken, Kenneka is beaming, her arm around Monifa, looking straight at the camera, with not a trace of fear about the future. None of them could have imagined that just hours later, everything would change forever. An old caption from one of Kenneka's posts read, "If I die young, just remember, I loved with everything I had, and I was always kind." No one knew that those words would be what people remembered most after she disappeared. It was Friday night, September 8th, 2017. The air was starting to cool in Rosemont, Illinois. Kenneka was getting ready, doing her makeup, packing her things, slipping on her favorite denim jacket and a brand new pair of white sneakers. She was headed to a friend's birthday party, a small celebration inside the Crowne Plaza Hotel, not far from home. She went with her 3 closest friends, Monifa, Shamaya, and Irene. They'd grown up together, shared everything, and tonight was just another night out like so many before. By 11:30 p.m., they arrived at the hotel. Room 926 on the 9th floor was already crowded. Loud music blared, and the glow of phone screens lit up the faces of girls live streaming on Facebook. There was alcohol, weed, and people Kenneka didn't know, including some older men. In the few live stream clips still online, Kenneka can be seen faintly in the background, quiet, leaning against the wall, eyes scanning the room. No one remembers exactly when she started acting differently. Some said she had been drinking. Others believed she was drugged. No one knows for sure. But around 1 a.m., Kenneka was seen leaving the room. One friend said she needed air. Another thought she was going to the bathroom. No one went with her. Security footage time-stamped at 1:13 a.m. shows Kenneka inside an elevator, alone, head down, moving slowly. When the doors opened, she stepped into a hallway on the lower level. No one followed. No one seemed to notice. No one called after her. No one ran after her. That 19-year-old girl, in white sneakers and long curly hair, had started a lonely walk through the cold, empty corridors of a hotel where no one was watching. At 1:36 a.m., a camera caught her stumbling through the hotel restaurant area, a section that had been closed for hours. She looked lost, disoriented, her arms stretched out as if trying to steady herself in thin air. There was no one else around. No one called her name. No one came to help. Later clips formed a haunting timeline. Kenneka wandered through hallways, into the hotel kitchen, and then vanished off camera. More than 30 security cameras captured pieces of that walk. But none caught the most crucial moment, how she ended up inside the freezer. Meanwhile, her friends had returned to the parking lot, only to realize Kenneka wasn't with them. They began to worry, but instead of staying to search, they somehow got hold of her car keys and left the hotel. They later said they assumed she'd found her way home or followed someone else. No one called 911. No one told the front desk. By 4:30 a.m., Kenneka's mother, Teresa Martin, got a call from one of the girls. She immediately drove to the Crowne Plaza, but when she arrived, she wasn't allowed upstairs or given access to security footage. Hotel staff told her to contact the police. When Teresa called, police refused to file a missing persons report. It hadn't been 24 hours. That morning, Teresa and her relatives walked the hotel halls, calling out her name, questioning employees. One person said they'd seen a girl stumbling past, but no one thought it was serious. Where had Kenneka been during those hours? Was she still alive when her mother was just one floor above? By the next afternoon, there were still no answers. Teresa pleaded with the hotel to review the cameras. Again, she was denied. It wasn't until police finally stepped in that any footage was reviewed, but by then, nearly a full day had passed. Almost 24 hours after Kenneka vanished, the security videos were finally opened. Hotel staff and police sat in front of the screen, fast-forwarding frame by frame. That's when they saw her last, slowly walking through a hallway, then entering the kitchen. No lights, no people, just silence, steel doors, and a path that led to the basement. At 12:25 a.m. on September 10th, nearly 21 hours after she was last seen, the body of Kenneka Jenkins was found inside a walk-in industrial freezer, ice cold, unconscious, alone. She was still wearing the same clothes she left home in. One shoe had come off. Her lips had turned blue. The freezer was no longer in use, hidden in an old kitchen area that was supposed to be locked. But no one could say for sure if it had been locked that night. And even stranger, the nearby cameras didn't capture anything at all. The first moments after her body was discovered were never fully disclosed. No one knows if anyone else had entered the area before her. No one knows the exact time she died. Police later ruled it an accident, hypothermia. They said she likely wandered into the freezer and couldn't get out. But for her mother, and for the community, the story couldn't be that simple. They asked, how could a drunk teenager open a heavy steel freezer door? How would she even know where to go in a kitchen she'd never been in before? And if this was truly an accident, why did it take nearly 24 hours to find her? When Teresa Martin stood next to her daughter's body, she didn't cry. Not right away. She just froze. For 21 hours, she had knocked on doors, begged staff, pleaded with police. But no one listened. No one acted in time. And when the truth finally came out, it was already too late. She didn't walk in there alone. I know that. I feel it, Teresa said at her first press conference. That night, the entire West Side community was shaken, and a storm of questions, with no real answers, began spreading across America. But if no one went in with her, who was the last person to speak to her? When police began questioning those who were at the party that night, the cracks in the story started to show. Irene, the one who live-streamed that night, insisted that Kenneka left the room alone. Monifa and Shemaya said they were only gone for a few minutes, and by the time they came back, Kenneka had vanished. But a hallway security video later revealed something different. The group had left the room at least 30 minutes before Kenneka was last seen on camera. One especially troubling detail: her friends used Kenneka's car to leave the hotel, without telling the front desk, without calling the police, and without checking the surrounding area. When asked why they didn't stay and look for her, one girl simply said, "We thought she followed somebody." Their stories didn't match. One minute they said she wasn't feeling well, the next they claimed she was fine. Sometimes they said they called her repeatedly, other times they couldn't remember. In the livestream videos, Kenneka's face never appears clearly, but the audio is unsettling: awkward laughter, hushed voices, and strange background noises. Something like a thud or a faint voice struggling to speak. Many viewers started asking, did something happen in that room before Kenneka walked out? And if so, why won't anyone talk about it? People who had thrown parties at the Crowne Plaza before said hotel security rarely checked rooms, as long as no one complained. So if something had happened, it could have easily been hidden behind those walls. All signs began to point to one possibility: someone might know more than they were saying. And maybe someone had quietly wiped away the evidence before it was too late. One of the things that sparked the most outrage in the community was this: there was no surveillance footage from the kitchen area, the place where Kenneka was found. The Crowne Plaza had a total of 47 security cameras, most of them recording continuously. But in the kitchen, the cameras were reportedly not working that very night. Hotel staff claimed the kitchen system had already been broken and the area wasn't used regularly. But people had questions. Why were the hallway cameras leading into the kitchen still recording? Yet the last stretch, right before Kenneka entered, cuts off suddenly? Was someone tampering with the footage, or did the system actually fail? Another strange detail: the freezer where Kenneka's body was found was supposed to be locked, but no one could confirm its exact status on the night of September 8th. Even the hotel staff didn't realize it was still accessible. That raised new questions. Who unlocked that door? Who had the key? And if no one knew it was open, how did Kenneka find her way in? Internal hotel maps showed the kitchen was far from public areas, only reachable through service corridors or a back entrance. But there's no footage of Kenneka walking through any of those routes. So how did she get there? On social media, users began analyzing every second of surveillance video, rewinding hundreds of times, searching for clues. They pointed out shadows, gaps in footage, odd behavior from people walking through the hotel. But nothing concrete ever surfaced. In the end, police concluded there was no sign of foul play. But the more gaps in the timeline, the more suspicion grew. Because if the cameras weren't working, if the kitchen was off limits, if everyone thought Kenneka had gone home, then why didn't anyone go look for her? And why did it take the hotel almost a full day to search the entire building? The silence from the hotel, from the people who were there that night, and from the authorities made the whole story feel even darker. A few days after Kenneka's body was found, police released a 36-minute surveillance video. It showed her final movements inside the hotel. But instead of clearing things up, the footage raised even more suspicion. Viewers noticed black frames, as if sections had been cut or timestamps didn't match up. Some clips stuttered or jumped oddly from one scene to the next. Many believed the footage had been edited. Kenneka's family, especially her mother, Teresa Martin, began to speak out more forcefully. She called for an independent investigation, hired a lawyer, and demanded a second autopsy. But police in the hotel insisted. All footage had been turned over. Nothing was hidden. Online, the theories grew louder. Was Kenneka drugged? Was there a fight in that hotel room? Did hotel staff have something to do with it? Or worse, did someone know exactly where she was and chose to do nothing? Public opinion split in two. Some accepted the accident theory. Others believed this was a cover-up and that those responsible didn't do everything they could to save a 19-year-old black girl. The anger wasn't just about her death. It was about the response, cold, distant, and unclear. The real question wasn't who killed her. It was, why didn't anyone save her? At candlelight vigils, Teresa rarely spoke for long. She would hold a picture of her daughter, the only photo taken for the birthday she never got to celebrate, and say just one thing. If my daughter had been someone else's child, would they have left her to die alone in the dark? Kenneka Jenkins wasn't just a victim. She became a symbol. A haunting reminder that even in a building filled with cameras, the most important moment can still happen off-screen. At 12:25 a.m. on September 10th, nearly 24 hours after she went missing, the body of Kenneka Jenkins was found inside a walk-in industrial freezer deep in the hotel basement. The area wasn't in use that night. No one was supposed to be there. And yet, there she was, alone, frozen, lying on her side, her lips a dark shade of blue. The initial response from police was silence. No urgent lockdown. No sealed crime scene. No rush to collect evidence. As if the discovery of a young black woman dead in a freezer was something that just happens. The coroner's report listed the cause of death as hypothermia. No signs of major trauma. No evidence of sexual assault. But there was alcohol in her system. And something else, a drug called topiramate, used to treat epilepsy. Her family insisted she had never been prescribed it. That finding raised a wave of new questions. How did the drug get in her system? Where did it come from? Was she drugged? No camera ever captured the moment Kenneka entered the freezer. No one knew how she got inside. And perhaps most disturbing, one of her shoes was found nearly 10 feet away, behind the freezer. Her body position didn't match the idea of someone simply collapsing. Still, police concluded it was an accident. No suspects, no charges. And just like that, the case was closed. But to the community, especially the black community in Chicago, that wasn't a conclusion. It was an insult. When a white woman goes missing, entire task forces are mobilized. But a black girl? She has to wait 24 hours, do her own search, and when she's finally found, no one is held accountable. The media began mentioning Kenneka Jenkins, but not out of concern. Her death was becoming a movement. Thousands gathered at the hotel to protest, holding signs that read, "Where is the justice for Kenneka?" 12:25 a.m. Hotel staff searched the kitchen area. Kenneka is found in the walk-in freezer. Basement freezer, not in use that night. She's wearing her jacket and jeans. One shoe is missing. No signs of sexual assault or visible injuries. Official cause of death, hypothermia, ruled accidental. But how did she get into a locked kitchen? Why were the cameras down? Why did no one search sooner? Kenneka's death wasn't just a line in a coroner's report. It became a flashpoint, a wave of anger that started on the west side of Chicago and spread across the country. Social media exploded with the hashtag Justice for Kenneka. People dissected the live streams from that night, frame by frame, second by second, sound by sound. One chilling moment stood out, a reflection in a mirror, possibly showing a man standing near Kenneka, a presence no one ever mentioned in their statements. Some believed there had been a fight, or even an assault, inside that room. But with no one talking, and no hard proof, everything fell into silence. Local activists began organizing protests outside the Crowne Plaza. But they weren't just demanding justice for Kenneka. They were demanding dignity for every black girl the system had failed. At one rally, Teresa Martin stood before a crowd and said, "If my daughter had blonde hair and blue eyes, would you have made me wait 24 hours? National media caught on. CNN, NBC, the New York Times. But the more attention the story got, the further the truth seemed to drift. The case was closed. The death was ruled accidental, and the hotel refused to answer any more questions. Kenneka's family, with help from a team of lawyers, filed a lawsuit against the Crowne Plaza demanding a full investigation. But the legal fight dragged on for years. before ultimately being dismissed. The court ruled the hotel wasn't liable for what it called unforeseeable behavior by a guest. Still, the movement didn't stop. Kenneka Jenkins became a symbol. Her final image, staggering alone down a sterile hallway, was printed on T-shirts, painted on murals, waved on flags across Chicago. Her story sparked national conversations about race, justice, and the value of Black lives in America. Because in a hotel filled with cameras, somehow, no one saw what mattered most. After the case went public, an unofficial wave of investigation swept across social media. YouTubers, TikTokers, Reddit threads, even former security professionals all joined in to analyze the case. Not for clicks, not for clout, but because something didn't feel right. Something felt hidden. One of the live stream videos from that party, previously ignored, was now being watched by millions. In it, there's a strange background noise, something like a muffled scream or a heavy thud buried under the music. But what truly chilled viewers was the reflection in Irene's glasses, the girl holding the camera. Some believed they could see the figure of a man standing just behind Kenneka. Too close, uncomfortably close. But in the official statements, no one mentioned him. No one seemed to know who he was. Soon, theories began to surface. One suggested Kenneka had been drugged, possibly with topiramate, the same drug found in her system. It's odorless, tasteless, and can disorient a person, dull their reactions. Combined with alcohol, it could have left her semi-conscious, able to walk, but not fully aware of her surroundings or capable of protecting herself. A darker theory emerged. Maybe Kenneka had seen something in that hotel room, something she wasn't supposed to see, a fight, an assault, something wrong. And maybe someone didn't lead her out to help, but to make sure she disappeared. And the one place in the entire hotel where no cameras were working was that old kitchen. People also noticed something else. None of her friends seemed especially urgent about finding her. They left the hotel with her car keys. They didn't notify the front desk. When questioned, their answers were vague, inconsistent. Was something being withheld? Was it fear or complicity? But still, these were just theories. There was no hard proof. Police dismissed all speculation, reaffirming the original conclusion, accidental hypothermia. And that was the moment trust began to collapse. Not just in Kenneka's friends, but in the entire system. When the accident ruling was made official, many couldn't accept it. And it wasn't just emotional denial. It was a deep, lived sense that justice hadn't been served, that something had failed. That feeling spread not just through Kenneka's family, but through the broader Black community across the U.S. Her story was no longer just about one missing girl. It had become a symbol of something bigger. The way Black lives, especially Black women's lives, are so often overlooked, dismissed, and devalued. Online, movements like Say Her Name and Justice for Kenneka continued to grow. People shared stories of being ignored by police, of escaping danger and not being believed. Women who had lived through terrifying nights and been told they were imagining it. A team of independent journalists launched a parallel investigation. They tracked down former hotel employees, reviewed autopsy records, and consulted video security experts. They discovered several surveillance clips had missing timestamps, frame data with no recorded time. Police said it was a software glitch, but Kenneka's family attorney asked the question many were thinking. If this had been a billionaire's daughter, would that glitch still be called a software error? A wave of helplessness swept through the community like a storm. Teresa Martin kept holding candlelight vigils, speaking at community events, even visiting schools to talk about victim advocacy. But the answers never came. Activists began to compare Kenneka's case to others, like Tamla Horsford, Sandra Bland, Black women who died under suspicious circumstances, and whose deaths were written off as accidents. Because when you see too many accidents, you start to ask, was it really an accident or just an excuse? That question wasn't just for the Jenkins family. It was for all of us. But if that's true, why was her shoe found 3 meters behind the freezer? 1 year after Kenneka's death, the case remained closed. No one had been charged. No one disciplined. No one held accountable. And for those who loved her, that silence was a wound that would never heal. Her family filed a lawsuit against the Crowne Plaza Hotel, accusing them of negligence, failure to ensure safety, and delaying the search. But the court dismissed the case, citing insufficient evidence of wrongdoing or gross negligence. To them, her death remained just an accident. But to her mother, Teresa Martin, nothing about it felt accidental. Not when a 19-year-old girl vanished in a hotel filled with cameras. Not when her friends left. The staff looked the other way. The police waited, and her daughter's body was only found because a mother refused to stop searching. In the 2 years that followed, Teresa never stopped fighting. She held dozens of candlelight vigils. She visited universities, churches, small communities, carrying a photo of her daughter and a question no one could answer. If it were your child, would you have let her die alone in the dark? People who attended those vigils say that whenever Teresa lifted that photo, the room would fall completely silent. Not from emotion, but from shame. Kenneka Jenkins became a symbol of the forgotten. Her name is now spoken alongside Tamla Horsford, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, Black women who were never saved in time. On a wall in West Chicago, a massive graffiti mural shows Kenneka smiling, eyes gazing into the distance. Below it, someone scrawled, "She deserves someone to walk with her." And maybe that's the most haunting part of this entire case. Not what happened inside room 926, not her final moments in the freezer, but the fact that, on her final walk, she was completely alone. No one was there. There was no clear conspiracy, no suspect ever named, no single clue to solve it all. Just gaps and silence. The silence of the system, the silence of those who saw, and the kind of silence that has already swallowed so many other girls. Kenneka Jenkins was not the first, and if no one speaks up, she won't be the last.